All
We're
right.
recording now, Mike.
Thanks, Bill.
Mhm.
All right. The time is 5:30 p.m. and I'm calling to order the Wednesday, February 10th, 2021 Public Safety Events and Quality of Life Committee meeting. I'm the chair, Mike Stefano, and I'm joined by committee members Bill Scott and Don Braceland. That was item number one, our call to order. Item number two, we have some WebEx information. I don't know if Bill, if you think we need to go over any of that or probably not. Yeah, I'll just remind everybody
Yeah,
that
we're fine, Mark.
yeah, just remind anybody who wants to make a comment or wants to speak, just make sure you identify yourself with your name and address for the record. If you put something in the chat, I'll find it. Okay. All right. Item number three is comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items that are not on the agenda. Do I have any? I don't see anything in the chat. Okay, I hear none. So we're going to move on to item number four, which is our monthly fire department. We have our Fire Chief Pelna.
Battery high.
Good evening, how are you? As you see, the report for the month of January, 75 calls. It's actually about 45 calls less than what we normally do in January, so significantly lower than normal. Three significant incidents to speak about: a house fire on Garfield Avenue, a house fire on East Minor Street, and then the building fire at the campus of Westchester at Wayne Hall. That's where our significant amount of property value at the 10 million mark with that in jeopardy. But most importantly, I want to thank Julie Dietrich and the Westchester University Center for Community Solutions, along with John O'Brien of the BID. They put together a project where Westchester University students are going to be used for a mapping project of hydrants within the borough of Westchester. So pretty cool project for us. Sounds pretty simple, but with the ever-changing hydrants throughout the borough, there's going to be some mapping software that they're going to provide for the department that we'll have at our disposal for incidents. So pretty cool project. But thank you to Julie and John for putting that together. As you know, we received our 2 new trucks. Thank you to Mike Stefano, Nick Allen, and Mayor Herron for coming to our day where we welcome the new trucks. So we're working on getting them in service. And another incident of note to just speak about, because I know in the past they were kind of a hot button item. We had a fire in an underground transformer this past Sunday out front of Moss on Market Street. PICO was there very quickly. The Westchester Police Department had the immediate area shut down, so there was no hazard to the pedestrians. It was right around the time of the Super Bowl, so there were a lot of pedestrians in the area, and they were able to quickly shut down the area as far as crowd control and traffic. And then we were able to stabilize the situation until PICO got there. But there ended up being no power outage for an extended amount of time in the business district. But it was an area of concern during the Super Bowl, which figures the timing was impeccable with that. But that's all I have.
As far as underground transformers, I remember that we haven't heard about this in a while. Is that something that's being addressed by the PICO project that they're doing? Is that part of it, or is this just a completely different issue?
They'll all be replaced.
I got you. Okay.
So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we're not going to have the issues that we've had for years and years in the central business district with those. We'll probably still get the nuisance. Unfortunately, you get debris in the vault. People throw cigarettes down there, that kind of thing. You get leaves, that sort of thing. I've seen the drawings of the vaults and such, but I don't know how they're vented to the outside. If the same thing can happen, but I would imagine so, that there's going to be open grading and that sort of thing for those. But we're hoping the elimination of so many overloads and the transformers failing.
Gotcha. Thank you. Bill or Don?
I have no questions.
I have a question, please. Say, last time we had a problem with one of those underground fires. It was behind the Justice Center, and there was a concern about some sort of gas that was being released that was toxic.
Carbon monoxide.
That's it. And did we have that problem this time?
We did. We had low levels. We had some in the kitchen of Moss. We were able to ventilate the building, but luckily there wasn't a high level of carbon monoxide or any other byproducts that we could find in there. But good question.
But you're saying that all these underground transformers are going to be replaced?
That's what I've been told, and that's my understanding. So that's good news for all of us.
They're going to be replaced, or is it going to be new technology where we don't have to have that kind of thing, or whatever?
Now, Bill, the project's underway. It's called. They've already started the project from down on West Market Street. They've made their way up to the Justice Center. They've just completed Prescott Alley, and they'll be doing Gay Street next. And they're being replaced with new transformers, bigger transformers, similar technology. It's all electric. And then they'll be running all new electric lines between the transformers.
Thank you. Yeah, what do they call that? We've heard a lot about what you're just talking about.
The Harmony Project.
Yeah, something like that. All right, gotcha. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks. Yeah, and I'll just comment on say a thank you to FAME and Chief Pelna and everybody, all the other firefighters who invited us to go, and it was really neat to see the two new trucks come in. My son really enjoyed it. There was a little tiny camera taking pictures. But I also got to check FAME, and I'll see all the new stuff. And thanks to Captain Whitmer and Chief Pelna for showing me around. It was really neat. So I just thanks so much for that. I really appreciate being a part of that. So
Glad you could come.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any other comments for the fire chief? Okay. Thank you so much. We're gonna move on, and we'll move on to item number 5, which is our police department report. Chief Moorhead.
Good evening, everyone. Jim Moorhead, Chief of Police. For the month of January, we saw 3,124 calls for service, of which 2,150 of those were in the borough. Pretty typical month for January. As far as the types of calls that we had, we still are consistently low since the onset of COVID. Although, Bill, if you could go down to the Part 1 crime for January. Next one. Thank you. Apologize. There we go. Bill's got it. There you go. Thanks, Bill. Just a notable for the month of January, we did see a 23% spike in assaults. Nothing remarkable about this, just that we had a slight spike compared to January of last year. And we do continue to see a rise in motor vehicle theft. We saw it was one of the only numbers that went up for 2020 due to the university's absence and the bars being closed. But people are still leaving cars running, leaving keys in cars. We've issued numerous warnings at these meetings and on social media. So we just want to encourage everybody to please keep their keys with them and keep their cars locked. That would certainly help. And that was all of the notable crime for the month of January. And I just want to give a huge shout out to everyone in the borough for the last 2 snow emergencies we had. First and foremost, Mayor Herron for being immediate and prompt and getting out the snow emergency declaration. Our new Public Works Director, Al, was instrumental in coordination. Obviously, can't do this without Bill Mann and Dave March pushing everything out on social media as well as they do. The first storm really worked well. The second storm, we had a little bit of hiccups with residents getting cars off the streets, and we just want to remind everybody that, you know, a lot of work goes into getting those parking garages open so that people can park their cars off the street, get them off the snow emergency route. But those main corridors, being High Street and Walnut and Minor and so on, they need to remain clear. Everybody saw how difficult they are to traverse with all the snow that remains in the street. And imagine the firemen trying to get a truck up those streets or an ambulance trying to get to the hospital. So moving forward, please, everybody heed the warning. We don't need to have an incident involving a fire truck or an ambulance when they're trying to get to an emergency. So that's my police department report for the month, and I'll take any questions.
I'll start with Bill or Don. Do you guys have any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
I do not.
Okay. I just had, I wanted to thank you guys for the, what you're talking about with the snow removal, getting those, alerting people to move their cars off emergency routes. I'm finding more and more day to day how important Officer March is to all of this to get the word out. So thank you, and thanks to Bill Mann too for all the Ready Chesco and to get everything ready there too. With that, I did have a question. And I didn't see it myself. My wife was mentioning there was something about an explosive device.
Yeah.
I even forget what alley it was. I can't remember off the top of my head. But any comment on that or?
Well, that was last night. It was in the 100 block of Locust Alley, which is in the southeast portion of the borough. We're investigating what type of device was used. It appears to be small, but at this point, we don't have a whole lot to go on. This is not the first time this has occurred. So it could be something as minor as somebody playing with quarter sticks of dynamite. The quarter stick M80, a little larger than an M80 type firework device, or it could be something a little bit more elaborate. We don't have any evidence indicating that, but we're in the process of investigating it since it happened last night.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I not that I'm hoping, but I'm hopeful that it was just somebody being an idiot with fireworks as opposed to something more nefarious. So it doesn't sound like it from what you said, but that's good to hear. Okay.
Yeah,
thank you.
It is early stages though, so bear with us while we continue to look into that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. In my opinion, it's more of a case for some of those street cameras that we keep talking about. So great, thank you. Anybody else have anything for the chief? Okay, great. We'll move on. So we're on to item number 6, which is our good fellowship report. We have Chief Brogan. Are you here, Chaz?
I am here. Yep. Thanks. Thank you. On our main report, this is the one that covers all 10 municipalities. Plus, we added this special operations field, which you'll see going forward now. And it's to kind of show you the stuff that we do outside of the 911 calls. So our vehicles, our people are doing more than just, answering 911 calls. The interfacility transfers are actually moving patients hospital to hospital, or hospital to nursing home, hospital to rehab. That is another service we provide as well. So we're going to list them on here. The data in the rest of the report doesn't reflect any of this, though. We track all this separately. Special events as well. Obviously, in a normal year, especially during the summertime, that number is much higher. And that's everything from 5Ks through the borough, the restaurant festival, stuff like that. That's where we noted. New January 1st, we signed an agreement with all the police departments that make up the Westchester Emergency Regional Response Team. Say that right? That's the the regional SWAT team for the area. So we're actually provide paramedics to that team going forward, and their role is to maintain and watch the health and safety of the police officers, but also any subjects they come in contact with. So that's brand new. It's something we just started. Our folks are actually training through that right now. They're actually out yesterday with them doing some training. So it's just another service line that we're going to provide now to our police departments. And lastly is rehab. That's a service we provided for 10 or 12 years now, where essentially we go to larger incidents all over the region, and the goal there is to medically monitor the first responders. So during January there, we actually went down to the fire at Victory Brewing in Kennett Square. So we go to those types of large incidents. We bring an inflatable tent that's heated, cooled. water, some over-the-counter medications, and we check their vital signs and make sure that they're well while they're working at their incident. So I just want to point that out to you. We can switch over to the borough report. So January, we had 445 calls total, 103 in which were in Westchester Borough. It was actually a really quiet month for us. This time of year are typically our busy months. And a quote unquote normal year, we see flu season right now. With the amount of mask usage, there is almost no flu right now, which is interesting. And it really shows the effectiveness of masks. So our volume's actually down this year in January. We typically expect January, February to be some of our busier months. So there's really nothing else outstanding for the month other than volumes down. So I will be respectful of your time unless you have any questions.
Bill or Don, anything?
I'm good.
I am too. I just find it interesting about the masks and its apparent effect on the flu. Pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. In a weird sort of way. I have nothing. I have nothing else. So does anybody else have anything for good fellowship? Okay, hearing none. Thank you so much, Chief Brogan. Let's move on to item number 7, which is the diversity discussion. This had started. It's been ongoing for a while, and last month at the at one of our sessions, I can't remember if it was the work session or not. We had talked about bringing this back through public safety. So I'll let Chief Moorhead kind of take it from there, if that's okay.
Thanks, Mr. Stefano. Again, Jim Moorhead from the Police Department. Last month, at the direction of President Galey with Council, we started to have an open discussion on the current diversity issues facing the police force. I'm very happy that Mr. Galey engaged in that conversation and we're able to get to a table and have this conversation. I can tell you that after the meeting, it certainly brought up some interesting conversation about where the conversation should lie. And it's certainly no slight on the Public Safety Committee, but I think everyone would agree that this conversation, the oversight of the police department lies in the mayor's office. The mayor should oversee what we feel should be a task force to engage in this conversation. Ms. Dorsey from council directed and led a meeting this past Friday where we had some fantastic discussion, about an hour, maybe a little over an hour long. And Ms. Dorsey feels the same way, that we should probably start a task force that takes the proper time and has the correct people on the task force moving forward. We feel that should consist of the mayor, soon to be interim mayor, the chief of police, should include borough council. So we want representation, probably in the number of 2 from borough council. We'd like to see a couple community members from Westchester that have a voice in the community when it comes to diverse decisions. We'd also like to see a member from East Bradford Township, since they participate in the police contract. And probably there was maybe 1 or 2 other people. I can let Ms. Dorsey expand upon that down the road here, but I think it's important that this task force take a look at what we currently do, our practices, and then have a discussion, making sure that we stay in touch with the Civil Service Commission, make sure that we are taking a look at the legal side of things as well. And then ultimately, the task force would bring back the results of that discussion to full council. And the discussion would be engaged in with full council. So nothing would certainly be decided on without full council's approval, but we feel that a task force would definitely be the way to go, since we need to take a look at so much. And we also feel that the time range of this would be somewhere in the ballpark of 6 to 9 months to get it done completely and correctly.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like the idea of it being an advisory task force is the correct way to go. So that all makes sense to me in what you're saying. Bill or Don, anything you want to chime in on before we go any further with this, or?
Just briefly, as I mentioned last month, I have reservations about this concept. I did a little bit of checking, keyword a little bit, and I found that when it comes to minorities, the police academies, the numbers are very small, very small. And so I think you're dealing with a pool of candidates that, in the overall scheme of things, almost seems microscopic. I'm not saying that one way or the other. It was just, I was kind of surprised at the numbers that I saw. That's all. I just wanted to throw that in there.
Hey, Don, real quick, if I could just comment on that, because that came up in our discussion, and
Oh, good.
I'm very happy that you brought that up, because that was actually a point that Ms. Dorsey and Mayor Herron and others brought up in this meeting, and that is accurate. Therefore, we want to be the model to try to change that and find real ways to reach our community, both African American, Latino, Asian. We want to reach everybody, find creative ways to get into those communities. So we'd like to hopefully be a model to make those numbers begin to change.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Got to get someone that speaks Spanish, though.
Yeah.
Got to do it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great. Bill, questions, comments?
Yeah. How many minority people do we have as police officers in Westchester?
Currently, Bill, we have 1 African American male and 3 females.
African American females?
No, 3 white females, I'm sorry, and 1 African American male.
And do females, are they in this topic?
Not in the sense, they're certainly not a minority, but I just wanted to point out that the diversity would include male, female as well. So we're hitting better benchmarks with that, but we're still not doing well in the category of minority.
And Chief, what's the universe? How many in the police force?
44 at full capacity.
And do we have?
We're currently at 40.
Okay, so there's only 1 African American in that group.
Yes, sir.
And you just referred to benchmarks, federal benchmarks. What's that all about?
There are no federal benchmarks, and this is another topic that'll come up in the work group. More densely populated areas like Philadelphia and Chicago have a slightly higher number, but they have better access. So how do we get better access? When our African American population is somewhere around the 8% mark, and our Latino population, I believe, is somewhere around 12%. So those are things we need to figure out.
And what are the benchmarks to which you just referred?
More than we have. I don't have an exact number. As Don pointed out, the academy's numbers are dreadful with minority student population in the academy. So it's a much larger conversation. But as a work group, we want to find ways to better Westchester, obviously.
Let me ask you this: could you define benchmarks in the sense you're using it? That term.
Benchmarks are numbers that we would like to see, and I think those numbers would need to be set by the work group on what we would like to improve upon in diversifying our police force. For example, if we were at full capacity of 44 and we have 1 African American male, I don't know what that number is going to look like, but I can guarantee it's got to be more than 1.
Okay, but are there any benchmarks coming down from on high, like from the state or the feds?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, we still remain confident that we hire the best people.
Yes.
We hire good police officers. We have a fantastic police force that works well for this community. What we're trying to do is continue that tradition, but diversify it with our people that represent our community.
And Chief, if I could just add here, I'm sorry, Bill. We used, we had some discussion around the census, right? And the current demographics of the borough, as well as East Bradford, that maybe we could leverage in those discussions. That might help you, your question.
Well, and
Bill.
what are the percentages now of the population of African Americans and Latino?
About 12% Black and 13% Hispanic. My numbers are a little,
All right.
what I'm looking, I have two different sets of numbers. It depends on what census you're looking at.
Okay. I always like to look at
That's pretty close.
I like to look at the ones most favorable to whatever I'm talking about.
So, Bill, it sounds like a lot of the questions you're asking are like what the actual task force would tackle. I was like, let's get these numbers, let's look at these things, let's decide if we're gonna create actual benchmarks. I think that committee or that task force, whatever we're gonna call it, specifically would be the body that would kind of advise council to set these, or the police department to set these. So I think your questions are good, but I don't know if we're gonna get answers tonight for those questions. So
okay, that's fine. All I
does
need,
that make sense?
if the response is we don't have answers tonight, I understand it.
May I, Mike? Whenever.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, Mr. Norley, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. So if 28%, so 72% of the borough as of 2010 census is white, that leaves 28% being minority. If you look at 41 officers where we are now, that leaves about 11 and a half minority. If you were looking for, representation proportional to the population. So, I mean, you look at something like, and from just a preliminary conversation standpoint, you look at something like, 6 Black, 6 Hispanic officers from a proportional standpoint. Again, it's preliminary, plus I believe the 2020 census numbers come out in like the April timeframe, so we'll be able to update that.
Thank you, Jordan. Thinking about this on the way into the meeting, at first place, the very large application to get to be a police officer seems to me would weed out a lot of people. So I'm sure you're going to be looking over that, and I appreciate that. That's all.
Thanks, Bill. So I guess to clarify for next week, we should send this back up to council, and I think the ask is, and if we are okay as a committee to agree to this, that we move forward with a task force set up in the mayor's office. Does that sound okay with the committee?
And let me say this. I don't believe, I think the mayor's office can set up such a task force unless it's, I think that a police / mayoral task force is what it is, and we shouldn't.
Like you're saying, we don't think we need council approval for that. You're saying
we don't.
Okay.
Because and it seems to be, everybody seems to be happy with what's there now. So that would be my thought. It doesn't hurt if things go to this discussion goes to council and council gives a nod to it, but I just don't think it's necessary. It seems like they're doing a lot of work on their own and what we have now. And I think it goes.
I think along with what you're saying, Bill, the sounds like the makeup of the task force would include at least 2 council members. I would hope that I could be considered as public safety chair to be there, but at least two council people, so we'd have our representation. Mr. Perrone, any comment on that? Whether that's kosher to do, just have the mayor kind of set it up, or do you think this really should go through council?
Well, if it's a committee of council would have to approve it.
Okay.
That's gets back to the benchmark Jim was talking about.
Yeah.
If the police department, wants to create a committee to study, their hiring practices, I don't see a problem with that.
Okay.
Mr.
Yeah.
Stefano,
Yeah.
it's Diane Heron. I agree with Mr. Scott. This comes under the authority of the mayor's office, so it isn't technically a council, go or no go.
Yeah.
So, but I think the way it's set up is very inclusive of everyone, the community, the police department, council, and East Bradford. So, and civil service. And so I think it's a really great proposal.
I assume that in terms of the council representatives in your group, do you have a name for it?
Not yet.
Okay.
You have ideas?
Something catchy, Bill. Something catchy.
Don't start me. I assume, for example, if you do want two council persons, that would come to council. You'd ask council to suggest two of us to go there.
Yes.
And there are other things you might want some additional money from someplace for. I can't see why, but so things would come to council. But I think the mayor and I agree. It's in the mayor's ballpark, and
Yeah, I tend to agree with you as well. Don, do you have any objections to that?
A little bit. With other issues, I just worry about too many cooks in the kitchen. Just if you have, I don't know how many people you would have, but I think the first thing you need to do is one of the goals that you want this committee to meet. You might not need as large a committee as what it's sounding like this evening. So I have my reservations, but that doesn't mean my mind is shut in any way. So
I think just for clarity, we talked about like a absolute maximum of 9 people. That includes the chief, the mayor, community members, East Bradford, everybody, council.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, then, if this is the case, I mean, it sounds like we don't even need to bring this up through work session next week, or do we want to at least have it on as a discussion point next week?
I'd like to see it get a little further along before it's presented to council. So
Okay, so maybe just the fact that we're discussing it here, the mayor's office and the police department can kind of start the process of putting together something and then it present it back through council. Does that make sense?
I think that sounds reasonable. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have a comment on this? Any other comments or questions? Anybody else?
Just one comment.
Yeah.
Just in fairness to President Gailey, who suggested this conversation, it'd be my recommendation that you, as the chair, notify him and please tell him we did start a discussion. We think it's the best direction to go.
Gotcha. I'm happy to do it. Yeah.
I'm sure he's watching. He just loves everything about Borough Council.
All right. I'll talk to Mike then about that. So,
Thank you.
hold on. I'm writing this down. Okay. Anybody else? All right. So we'll move on. There's no action there. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 8, which is approving our January 2021 minutes. I looked at them. They look fine. Bill or Don, any issues?
I'm fine with me.
I'm fine with them.
They're 3-0 to approve. And then lastly, item 9 is any other business. All right, I hear no other business, so we've completed all the business. It's 6:04. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.